is Nan McKay, and with us today is Ericka Saurit, founder of Saurit Creative, which is a boutique brand marketing agency with a mission to support and elevate brands across the entire home industry. As a global brand marketing leader, she has overseen digital product development and brand strategy at Airbnb in San Francisco. She's created immersive physical and brand experiences for TAG, Estée Lauder, and Procter Gamble, as well as top home and lifestyle brands around the world. She's developed award-winning brand messaging and engagement campaigns. Her background in interior design and marketing has made her passionate about helping businesses transform into unforgettable brands. So welcome, Ericka.
Thank you so much, Nan. I'm super excited to be here and have our conversation today. Thank you.
Yes. Can you start by explaining what it means to be a creative renegade and how this concept relates to brand building as opposed to just maybe business building?
Yeah, of course. So I'll start by saying traveling the world turned me into what I like to call a creative renegade. I spent most of my life traveling. I went to graduate school in Finland. I worked on projects in Europe and Asia. I was fortunate to have lived for about 7 years in China, working there. And then on my own adventures through South America, now I live in France half the year and the other half in North Carolina in a city called High Point, which is the home of home furnishings, in case anyone knows it out there for the other half. But the thing that stands out to me amidst this 20-year cache of experiences, it's not the architecture, the history, or the food. It's the feelings and the emotions that I had in each place that I remember the most. So what I started to think in my work in doing marketing and branding, of course, we think a lot about the emotions, the motivations, and the drivers behind the behavior of our audiences and our clients and our customers in order to, deliver marketing or create stories or, create any kind of, client or customer facing marketing for them. We think deeply about what are their emotions. And so when I think about travel, I think about the most, unforgettable experiences are tied to meaning. The meaning and like the memories that are created from each place. They're not about like brick or buildings or, food bouillabaisse. They're about the emotions and the feelings that we associate with those places that makes them memorable. So like imagine a very significant trip you took, maybe your honeymoon or graduate trip, or, maybe just a trip on your own by yourself, your first travel alone, anywhere, even like to another city, another state. It doesn't have to be another country, but remember those emotions and those feelings that were tied to that experience and how, whenever you think now about that place, you don't think about the buildings that you visited or the food. You may have a memorable meal, but you remember the emotion you had there, the feeling that ties you to that place that can be very positive and hopefully not negative, but there's always going to be an emotional connection. So that's the thing that becomes unforgettable. And that's how I start to think about brands, how I think about the clients that I work with. I kind of get them to shift their mindset from being like a business, thinking like a business to thinking like a brand, because people think about a brand, they obviously think about an emotion tied to that thing. So what I've been able to say is that, to be able to stand out, which is one of the tenets of marketing, you really want to rise above the noise. You want to create a message or a story or a, storytelling strategy, a marketing strategy that cuts through all of that, that becomes unforgettable. And that requires courage. It requires an enormous amount of understanding who you are. And it takes creativity. So I say becoming a creative renegade is really about just believing in the power of your brand to help you excel in your marketing. So that's my long story short about what a creative renegade means. And it's more of a mindset shift than anything. A position, a directive, a call to action.
I think what I hear you saying is it's really crucial to have a defined story for your brand.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about what are some of the strategies for getting that story?
Yeah. So a story itself is a metaphor. It's like, I'm sorry, it's an organizing principle for your brand, right? And a metaphor, simile, any kind of device you use in the storytelling itself is how you bring people in, right? I'm not the first person to say this, certainly, but I'll remind you that we're hardwired for stories, that stories are the thing that, help us understand our culture, our history, how to survive, stories that led us to water, that, told us how to build fire, that reminded us of who our, ancestors and our history was. But now story is a way to help organize certainly our content plan in our marketing strategy. But for any part of your business, a story becomes an essential part of onboarding new team members, onboarding new partners, potentially new vendors, or people that you're working with and wanting to bring into the ethos of your business. A story is going to help quickly activate those values and really essential parts of your business that you want people to remember and understand. So I say storytelling is an organizing principle in any marketing that you do. I think I have developed a framework to kind of give people a system. It's sort of a 1, 2, 3, kind of a ladder system to think about storytelling as a brand strategy, but also as a way to start to create stories in their business around that. The first thing is all of these start with an E. I will say I have this E3 storytelling framework. I'm Ericka, so people can remember the E's and the Ericka at the same time. The first one is very kind of common first place to start with marketing strategy, but that's really defining that extraordinary position you hold in the market. If your brand is, if you're the first of your kind to be creating a product, that's what makes you extraordinary. But for many of us, we're not, the sole service provider. We're not the sole product category leader. We are competing. We are going to be benchmarked with other brands. And what we need to do is think very carefully and thoughtfully about what it is, whether it's your education, your accreditation, your experience, your maybe experience from another industry brought over into the current industry that you're in. That lifetime of experiences are going to make you extraordinary simply because nobody else has followed the path. I don't care if you put two of the same people with the very same job next to each other. There's going to be things that we can pull out that can talk, that we can speak to, that make them extraordinary. I start with that. I ask people 2 questions, like, tell me what are the positive associations with your brand, and tell me the negative. And we usually kind of dig into the negative ones first and flip them, turn them into positives, because we all have this really sort of extraordinary thing about us that really will resonate with our clients if we're able to, bring it forward, be confident about it. And most of the time it's something people are like, oh, I wasn't really going to mention this, but I did this blank, blank, blank. And so that's the thing. Finding out what makes you extraordinary. And that's the position where we start. The second part of this E3 storytelling framework is emotional resonance. This is my favorite part because this is where you get to start to come back to that, creative renegade. You can be really bold and build stories around the true meaning, the true motivation behind why your clients come to you. In my industry, the home furnishings industry, which also includes interior design, building, architecture, real estate, in some cases, it's all part of home making for people, for our clients. I have found from my experience working as an interior designer for about 10 years and then doing marketing for 10 plus years after that, that there's 5 real relevant core emotional drivers that influence clients to work with someone who's going to help them renovate their home or refresh their home or purchase products for their home. Do you want to hear them?
I do.
Okay. I will say, just to give this some context too, there is a very large and established and quite famous, if you're in the environmental psychology side of branding, that was developed by a set of researchers and psychologists looking and trying to understand what it was that influenced purchase decision at the moment of purchase for fast-moving consumer goods like toothpaste, cosmetics, soaps, things like that, where we see things on a shelf, back in the day when people shopped in stores. It's still happening online. But they really wanted to understand what those emotional drivers were that allowed a person to choose one over the other, not simply kind of physical position on the shelf, but that emotional story that they were telling themselves right when they chose one brand of toothpaste over another. Now, we know that when you're purchasing things like, toothpaste or maybe even shoes or, something that the stakes are a little bit lower than when you're purchasing something like a car or a home, or you're choosing to, hire an interior designer. It can be very expensive. It can be, a multi-month or potentially multi-year process. It can involve you, moving out of your home, maybe taking your children into a new school. If you're in a place of transition, it can be really an emotionally fraught experience. And so, of course, the funnel phase of, creating stories around this for people have to be really resonant, because someone is going to make a split-second decision to buy toothpaste, but not to make interior design purchases, like not to make a service purchase. So of those 16 to 20 core emotional motivations that the psychology research identified, I knew about this for many years. And I started thinking about this in context while I was working in marketing for how this is playing out in my space. What are the 5 key emotions that I see most likely being used in storytelling, in marketing for the home industry that are, happening with furniture, with furnishings, with service brands? And so those 5 are a sense of belonging. We want the home to represent a place of safety, a place of security. I see this a lot in, people building specifically for families, interior designers that focus on, growing family homes, or even homes where people are moving out of the house, empty nesters who want to, retake back their home together after their children have gone away to school or gone off and created their own lives. They want to make a space where people can come back and gather. And that's really the motivation for them seeking a designer to help them with the space, less about resale value or other factors, but it's more about like creating a place that feels like everyone still belongs there. And so that is a way, if you can get into the psychology of why, a person is really seeking out interior design services, that one might apply to your client. And is a really great place to start storytelling for that market. The second one is to be seen and heard. This one I see a lot with interior designers who are working with, new people, first home buyers, or people who are, using the home to entertain more. They want to have a lot of people over so that they can, entertain and share that space. But it's not a negative feeling at all. It's sort of a place where the home becomes an expression of something you can't quite articulate about yourself, right? That I love the phrase, like, my home really just, it's really me, right? What does that mean? Like, that's a really hard thing to message around. What's driving that is the core emotion to be seen and heard. And an interior designer can really help you get to the heart of what that means so that you can feel comfortable in your space. The third one is that our life has purpose and meaning. This one is about creating something bigger than yourself, leaving a legacy. I usually see this one together with the next one, which is hope for the future. Creating a home where it will become multi-generational, where it will become a place where, again, the home becomes more of a fixture in the family. It's part of the story of the family. It's another character in the family. And there's a lot of people seeking out that type of place. They want to be able to do something just because they can for their family. And that's a really beautiful way to storytell. The last one is one of my favorite. And I think we see this one very, very often. We see all of these outside of the home industry, but it's the idea of wonder with an O and wonder with an A. The idea that we are always in a state of discovery, always in a state of exploration about, understanding something about ourselves in a wider world. walking through the forest, staring at the stars, those kind of, emotions that make us aware that we're very small in a very, big, vast world. But it also tells us something about, ourselves. So this one is very, very beautiful way to tell stories here. And my homework assignment for you and for, the audience is to say, okay, now that I'm aware of each of these sort of 5 core human emotions, I certainly probably have had those. How are brands using these? Like, how might you begin to notice when a brand is speaking to these particular, or some device around these 5 emotions? And there's others, like I said, you can dig into that research. But if you're in the home industry, or if you're in an industry where, your potential clients might resonate with some of these emotions, they might be making purchase decisions based on some of these deeper motivations, then that's a great place to start your storytelling.
If you've covered this already, I was just thinking how we can tap into those emotions to build that brand that not only stands out, but maybe is also unforgettable.
Yeah.
So are there any examples of strategies that you might have used that have worked pretty well for you?
Yeah. So I would say the third E in that framework. So we have extraordinary positioning, emotional resonance. That's the second one with those 5 beneath it. The final one is experiential touch points. So how can you really create a strategic plan to execute this messaging and the storytelling across all the, touch points of your customer journey? And I do that with clients. We look, of course, at, what messaging is important at the awareness phase, what messaging is important at the discovery. The awareness and discovery phase are the same, but at the consideration phase of this customer journey, which is usually for design services quite long, again, because people are not making a spontaneous choice here. They're educating themselves for weeks, months, longer, possibly longer. So the storytelling has to be really rich and emotive. And we look at then what channels are best for that. Just high level, the awareness discovery phase, social media is great. You can push out a broad message to many, many, many people. Whether or not they see it is not up to you. But if you want to have a conversation with people, I think, word of mouth, person to person networking, going to events, going to where your clients, the potential clients, are showing up, is really important. We talked about leveraging your partners, building a brand message that, if you're an interior designer, sometimes your leads for clients come from realtors, like realtors in your area. So if someone's going to purchase a home and, the realtor can say, hi, I see you love this house, but maybe you want to make this change. I know a great designer. The next thing that comes out of their mouth is so essential, because what they'll say is, and they are blank. That's the narrative, the message, the story that you want to be a little bit more in control of. You don't want them to just say, oh, she's an interior designer down the street. You want them to say, she's an interior designer that focuses on family homes. Yes, that really are about connectivity, again, you can, you work on what you want them to repeat, and that's the kind of script that you give them. But you will find that that's when, people really start doing marketing for you, but you've got to make sure it's consistent and it's aligned with the brand that you want to represent. So, that experiential touch point happens throughout the entire, pre kind of awareness phase, all the way through to the point where they make a decision. And even after, because your clients are your best marketing too. They're also sharing who's done their home, who is, who would you recommend? There's an industry publication here called Business of Home. And I was listening to one of their podcasts, and the editor-in-chief had interviewed a designer, and what the takeaway from their conversation was, lots of people are doing word of mouth, but have you considered that the neighbors of your clients are just as important in this system? So what the interior designer was doing was saying, I'm so sorry, there's going to be a little bit of construction noise. There's going to be some extra traffic over the next couple of months. Here's a gift. Here's my card. Call me if anything, goes out of and beyond, the time, the hours, the expected amount of, chaos, call me and I'll make it right. And in doing that, she introduced herself as the designer. Typically you'll see that maybe your clients in the same neighborhood are the other clients that you're trying to reach. I thought that was just a really brilliant way to share a brand message, to do some word of mouth marketing. Low cost, if not no cost. Handwriting a card doesn't cost you anything except for time, and it's time well spent. So that experiential touch point, that third part of this framework is really more about activation.
What are some maybe common mistakes that people make when trying to build that brand in the home industry, and how could you avoid these?
Yeah. So I think not marketing at all, obviously, is the first one. No one's going to find you if you're not making an effort. And, marketing, people say, I can't afford to hire a marketing person, or I can't afford to hire internally, or I don't want to work with an agency. I had a bad experience. I say, well, that's fine. You probably went through several plumbers, or maybe several accountants, or several bookkeepers before you found the right fit. And that's, you have to run a business and you have many hats to wear. If you're a solopreneur, or if you're doing it on your own, or if you're small and you're trying to, balance all the responsibilities of running a business, even when you're a medium-sized business, even a small business is, you tell me, I'm sure I'm going to get this wrong, but a small business in the US is characterized as million in revenue or less. I would say that's a majority of the businesses I know. Is that right?
Well, it depends on your criteria, who you're asking. So if you're asking SBA versus you're asking government contracts, it depends.
Okay.
Usually it's probably a lot smaller than that for most situations, especially in the startup. You're not making anywhere close to that.
I know. Yeah. No way.
It's defined differently for different purposes.
Right. But I would say for every single person I've ever encountered in business, period, money is always going to be an issue, right? No one has bottomless pockets to hire marketing, do $20 million marketing projects. It's just not happening. So get out of that mindset. I think the biggest mistake is really just not investing soon enough. And when I say invest, it can be something you can do on your own. You just, need to give yourself the time and the space. If you don't have a background in marketing, it's more than just, creative and beautiful ads or your website. There has to be a strategy to it, just like anything else. And so we help clients with that. We start with messaging. We say, there's really no sense in doing any marketing, building a website, doing any social media posting, doing any email campaigns if you don't have a very clear and very effective brand message. So we start with that. And it's the most enlightening part of the whole process, Nan, because once people see, the power of a really good message, how quick, how effective it represents them and what they do and who they do it for and why they do it and why it makes their life better, then, it opens all kinds of ideas and it frees them up. So that's where we start. I would say that's the biggest mistake, is having an inconsistent or unclear message, and then, struggling with marketing because it's not going to work if you're not speaking to the right people and saying the right thing.
You brought this up on the financial end of it. What should people expect, just as a range, to pay for this kind of branding and marketing that goes on?
There are a variety of different price points, and there's a lot of different service providers who can help you. As a rule, between, on the low end, maybe 5%, and at the high end, 9 or 10% of your revenue. If you're at a place where you can outsource, you can, I will say, if you're on a deep budget, I think you can hire different people at different, don't worry about an internal hire people out who can help you, experts, but look for experts in your industry. Because as you know, marketing is a part of a business strategy. If you hire a generalist marketing agency and they don't understand the nuances of, I mean, certainly finance or potentially healthcare, wellness, the design industry is like this. It's very complicated for them to ramp up and understand, how your business works. So I would say there's certainly marketing agencies that are going to specialize in specific, verticals or specific areas. Find one and talk to them first. Find several, find three, find, 4. Talk to them, find out what they do. Some will be only on the implementation side. So they will only be, building or executing, and they will look to you to come with, your brand style guide, your brand message, your tone, your voice. That again is the very most important part of any marketing. So before you start building anything, make sure that you've got that set. And to do that work, I would say hire a brand strategist, hire someone who can really walk you through the complex process of getting the brand foundation right. And you will thank yourself in the future. Thank yourself immensely for getting that work done first.
And I think that was just a pearl of advice to find somebody maybe that understands your industry rather than just shotgunning it. And then they have to do all the work.
Yes.
And they're going to charge you probably for that. Kind of knows their way around, right? That was just a pearl of advice. That was really good.
I've just seen it so many times. And in the other agency owners that I've spoken with, we end up redoing the work of, very well-intentioned other, service agencies, but they just simply did not have the capacity to understand the lingo, the jargon, the depths that you have to understand this business to be able to, make it resonant, to make effective and beautiful marketing. And I think what a lot of people do sometimes is that they meet someone. Marketing people are great at marketing. Like that's our job, right? We're really good at selling what we have to offer. Exactly. That's why we do it. Yeah. But they just might not have spent, maybe it was the right place at the right time. They just maybe didn't know, they weren't educated on a, another process, or it was someone local or something like that. But I just say, before you invest anything, just do your due diligence and talk to different people and find a good fit. It's just like any other service. It's just going to be really important to find the right fit and continue to ask questions, see samples of their work, ask. And a lot of times I will say too, marketing, especially brand strategy agencies like us, we do a lot of internal work that we can't share. A brand strategy is a business strategy. So we can't share a lot of that work in our portfolio publicly, but we can walk you through case studies when we do meetings with you that help you see and understand a deeper level of the work that might not be kind of readily available on social or on websites.
Well, you've been so helpful when somebody's trying to what in the world, they can do to make their business stand out. You've been so helpful with that.
Thank you.
Tell us about what exactly you might offer somebody.
What
somebody comes to you, how can they contact you? What would you do? What service you're providing them specifically? Kind of go into that. Would you market yourself, like we were talking about?
Thanks. Thank you, Nan. I really appreciate that. I will say first that I put a lot of effort into my newsletter. I love to get really well thought out, well-researched, even sometimes just entertaining, newsletters from people in not just my industry, in lots of different ones, because that's actually one way I stay really educated. So I put a lot of thought into the one I put out for my list. So I will say, if you want to get on that, it's not just for the home industry. I talk a lot about, brand ideas. I talk about bigger, kind of higher level business, and usually end up bringing it back down to marketing. So there's something that you can apply, even if you're not in the design or creative industry. So you can get on that at my website. It's sauritcreative.com, SAURIT creative.com. You'll see there's a brand audit that I offer. It's a free, really fast way to look at how your brand messaging is showing up across all your I will say marketing channels. It's a 1-page downloadable. There's a video that will walk you through it really quickly, and you can do it. You can fill it out. It's a PDF. You can fill it out on your phone or on your computer. And that I hear from a lot of people who take that and sort of look at it and go, wow, I know exactly where to start on, updating my message. I know exactly where it's inconsistent. There's a couple things I maybe forgot about. I built a few years ago that are still out there, because typically you're not looking at yourself when you may Google your business, but you would be surprised at how inconsistent your message might be to someone who sees you on, Google search, who sees you on Instagram or some social media platform, sees you on LinkedIn, who sees you, even on your business card, who again, also might hear about you from, word of mouth connection or at a party. Make sure all those messages are consistent, and this little 1-page downloadable will help you see that really fast. I'm launching. It will certainly be live by the time this podcast goes live. Marketing School for Creatives. It is it's a 6-week virtual course that you can take, and I'll be popping in to support you with that. This is a MBA level marketing school for anyone who's doing any kind of creative business. I say a service business, but this came about because I was a creative who found my way into a marketing role. And in doing so, I thought that the creativity was enough for me to produce, high level marketing assets. And I realized very quickly that what I was missing was this foundation. I went back to school. I learned it. I learned from some of the best marketing minds in the world at the companies that I worked for. And so I created this as a way to, educate other creatives who need to market their business or find themselves in a marketing role. That is going to be available, and you can see that from my website as well. And then just reach out. I do, free discovery calls. I'd love to talk to you about, your business, transforming your business into a brand. We do services and all sorts of things. So I would say the best place to start is certainly my website, sauritcreative.com. Do that brand audit, check out the Marketing School for Creatives if you're interested, and then just reach out.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nan. It's been a pleasure.